everyone. Dan Eisner here from ZLC Employee Benefits Solutions. My passion is working hard to find better ways for employee benefits by leveraging my relatively unique profile, more than 20 years as an employee benefits advisor, and being the only chartered professional accountant working in this industry in the local market. In this podcast, I want to talk about some more recent developments in employee benefits plans around prescription drug coverage, which bear a strong resemblance to what we saw about 15 years ago. As always, I'm going to give you my thoughts, but I'm really interested to know what you think. So let's get started. So as I said, about 15 years ago, there was an amazing phenomena in the employee benefits industry, and employee benefits inflation slowed dramatically. And this was directly related to reduced drug costs due to what we now often refer to as the patent cliff. Back then, about over a 5-year period, approximately 75% of the drugs in Canada, now that's based on the dollars spent, lost their patent protection. And we saw generic pharmaceutical companies step up and start producing and selling these drugs at significantly lower prices. As most prescription drugs are reimbursed through private employer-sponsored employee benefits plans, the patent cliff helped generate significant and sustainable savings. Employee benefits plan sponsors enjoyed a reduction in annual employee benefits plan inflation rates, which went down to as low as 2% per year, as compared to a long-term average of approximately 6% in the years prior. So what does that have to do with today? So we're actually seeing a similar phenomena upon us, and we hope to see reduced inflation rates as a result. This time around, though, it's the high-cost specialty drugs that are losing their patent protection. And many employee benefits plan sponsors may be looking forward to the same kind of financial relief from what we call biosimilars that we saw from generic drugs. Specialty drugs currently account for less than 2% of all submitted drug claims, but account for over 30% of drug spend in Canada, and these costs are increasing. These types of drugs are significant from a cost perspective, typically over $10,000 per year for recurring conditions. So any financial savings here would be greatly appreciated by group benefits plan sponsors. However, biosimilar drugs are not necessarily the same as generic drugs. Biosimilar drugs are still costly to produce, even when the pharmaceutical companies don't have to spend the significant research dollars to develop these drugs. Therefore, list prices for biosimilars have generally only been 20 to 50% lower than prices for the related original specialty drug over the last couple of years, whereas the list prices for generic drugs can now be as much as 80% lower. So many in the benefits industry are hoping that further savings might actually be realized with more competition between pharmaceutical companies in the biosimilar space. To date, biosimilars have become available for many of the more popular and costly biologic drugs, including but not limited to names like Remicade, Enbrel, Neupogen, Lantus, Neulasta, and Humira. However, employee benefits plan sponsors have not immediately achieved those savings. Biosimilar drugs were not always considered by physicians to be interchangeable with their brand name comparators. As a result, some physicians did not want to disrupt proven therapies and kept their patients on the higher cost drugs. Even though biosimilars have been available for a number of years, many plan sponsors just didn't see the full financial savings that we saw back around the generic drug patent cliff. What really helped, though, a couple of years ago was a decision made by the BC government that took a new and bold direction and changed the provincial pharmacare drug plan to require mandatory switching to specific biosimilars. All patients needed to switch to the lower cost biosimilar drug in order to qualify for government funding. Since that time, most insurers in Canada followed the BC pharmacare protocols, which have extended the savings to employee benefits plan sponsors. So the results for the BC government for 2019 and 2020 indicated that because of that policy change, there was 80 to 90% switching ratio to biosimilars, which generated a 33% overall cost decrease for specialty drugs in BC versus an 18% cost increase for the rest of Canada over that same period, which hadn't implemented those policies. We now note that other provinces like Alberta, Ontario, New Brunswick, and Quebec have announced similar programs. The good news is that biosimilar drugs will now provide some level of cost savings to employee benefits plan sponsors, much in the same way that generic drugs did almost 15 years ago. Unfortunately, the savings have not come as quickly nor as consistency. While those generic drugs now often cost 80% less, biosimilars will be about 20 to 50% less. Group benefits plan sponsors are certainly not complaining, as this new phenomena might bend the annual inflation curve by maybe 1 or 2% for the next couple of years. Okay, you've heard my thoughts and opinions. Let me know what you think. Was this advice helpful? How does this compare to what you're hearing from your current advisor or other advisors in the market? As well, I'm always interested to know if there are other current topics that you'd like to see me cover in future podcasts. Let me know what's bothering you or keeping you awake at night with respect to your employee benefits plan. So thanks for joining me today. Be sure to follow me on my LinkedIn business page, which is Dan Eisner, Employee Benefits Advisor, and you'll get a notification on the next Better Benefits podcast. All that information will come up on the screen in a second. Thanks so much.